typically when people start off, and if they don't learn and become professional investors, that what they're trying to do is figure out what the future looks like, right? They're trying to, I got to figure it like a code. Wrong. Nobody knows, including the future, meaning there's too many unpredictable things. What you should be doing is trying to stare as hard as you can into the darkness to recognize the hairpin turn coming up before anybody else sees it.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate and actual performance may differ. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.
Dots. It's kind of a morose start. Chase, it's my fault. I brought it up. But Chase and I were lamenting, not missed opportunities, but we're watching Micron pop 5.5, 6% today. That was something we bought. What did we buy that 2 weeks ago?
Maybe 3 now.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Maybe 4. Time's flying. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. They announced earnings, and we're sitting there going, oh yeah, the world needs a lot more memory, especially with what's going on. Memory had been in a freaking trough, right? Which probably started happening. It was post-COVID, right? 22, 23, when PC sales started falling off.
Memory's had a lot of nasty bear markets and a lot of false dawns.
Yeah, that's true. And they reported really good earnings, gave good guidance. You went and looked at the stock. It was dirt cheap. And you're like, no, let's go buy that.
And like the insiders are buying at new highs. You got board members that work at, what used to be at TSMC buying, like they're telling you like, oh, this memory thing is real.
No,
and I think the best performing S&P 500 stock so far this year is SanDisk, another memory name. So there's something going on there. And when we bought it, it was literally cheap. It was one of the reasons I think if we'd have looked at it and it was expensive after because their guidance was compelling. If you listen to the guidance and you went and looked at it, and it was like 1 million times earnings or whatever, you're like, yeah, never mind. But you looked at it and you're like, wait a second, it trades at what? And compared to its history, and you're like, oh well, all right, well, take a shot at that.
Well, and then, like, this is what we're saying. Like, in a normal market, in a normal healthy market, they wouldn't have gone into earnings that cheap. But like this, it's just another example of what we're saying, where you have to take advantage of these inefficiencies. The hardest thing about it, though, well, let me elaborate a little bit. You have to take advantage of the inefficiencies, in my opinion, that the giant momentum trade and the ETF trade is, we've spoken about it many times. But the tough part about it is that when you run into those situations, they're so contrary to what when you're buying a stock cheap, typically, and this has been my experience up until about 10 or 11 years ago. And I feel like that's when things really started to pivot. But usually when you're getting a stock at a great deal, you have to look through the nasty news that got it cheap. Right? You know what I mean? And one of the weird parts that I'm still having a tough time wrapping my head around and getting used to this market is that if something looks really good and really cheap, it probably is. It's that simple.
It feels like, it always feels like a trap.
Yes. Yeah. Like I'm looking around going, and we talked about it when we were buying TSM and Google. You're kind of looking around going, no, you guys want me to buy this. You know what I mean? And then you look forward and you're going, for all last year, you and I were sitting there saying, even on the show, man, we just can't have enough Google and TSM. We think that there are other things in our portfolio that are going to win bigger. But in terms of convex bets, you're just like, feels like there's virtually no. And then TSM was like that too. You're looking around going, hey, you guys are all running these chip companies up. Meanwhile, Taiwan Semiconductor can't get off the mat, guys. They're the only guaranteed winner in this whole thing.
Yeah, almost every single time you found something, someone come out with an idea like, oh, check out this chip or this chip company or this new thing. And you're like, you quickly go into AI and like, who actually manufactures it? Oh, yep, TSMC.
Yeah, every time you heard that, you just looked in the back. TSMC was like, oh, there's another customer.
Yeah.
There's another customer. There's another customer.
I could figure out who is going to win on the individual chip level, or I could just realize that they all have to go through the same tollway.
Yeah, I love shovel salesman, right? The picks and shovels, sell them the picks and shovels, win no matter what, right?
And I feel like they're as scared of the AI bubble as I am. So like, I have a lot of respect for that too. Like,
well, and I think even now, I don't think that TSM isn't a buy here. Like when I look at the valuation on TSM and I look at the risks it shows, I actually look at it now and I go, that seems like a really fair price on it.
Yeah. I remember we bought it, whatever it was, probably five times forward earnings. And then 5 times sales. And then we we trimmed it back hard at 10 times sales. Cause it got back to like, okay, well, now it's getting pretty expensive and baking in a lot of good.
Yep.
But then, yeah, same thing. You kind of pull back again. It's just,
yeah, I want to say we bought it at like 16 to 18 trailing 12 earnings.
That sounds right.
I mean, it was
close enough. Yeah.
It was just dirt cheap. It was one of those where we probably would have gotten into it quicker in size had it not been so cheap. I mean, remember, because that was like one of the things that I kept looking around going, what are investors freaked out about? You just couldn't find anything.
Well, the one thing you could find was the Taiwan risk, even though no one put that in NVIDIA, as we've talked about.
Right. Yeah.
Which is so hilarious.
Well, yeah. Oh, there's risk of China. And you're like, okay, if China takes over that, how's NVIDIA getting their chips, man? Like,
they still have a business. NVIDIA kind of almost doesn't at that point. Like, what are we talking about?
And that's the thing, I think that's one of the toughest things about navigating this market is you're not getting the same feedbacks. You're not getting the same, responses that if you've been doing this for more than the last 6 years, I think everybody knows what we're talking about. It's just this market works very differently. And it's like I said, and in the past, our trepidation about getting into TSM and Google, considering the backdrop, it probably would have been right. The market just wouldn't have missed things like that. Fascinating how it works. So I want to give people a quick warning here, and I'm springing a surprise on you. If you don't want to hear any football discussions, we will save them toward the end. But what we do need to do,
but they're coming.
Well, we got to do a playoff. It's playoff weekend, man. We got to do a preview.
And this is a good playoff weekend because there's four games instead of just 2. It starts getting boring.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that,
but save it for the end.
Yeah. Exactly.
We go right down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Why don't we start with a rundown? Give us a rundown on the on the market.
And a very large caveat on the rundown that we are recording very early.
Yes.
So we still have 2 hours and 40 minutes to go. So this might change dramatically. But you're pretty flat. S&P's up 0.13. Qs are literally flat. Smalls are continuing to win, up about 0.5%. Equal weight is down about 0.1. Mag 7's up about 0.1. XUS is flat, which is actually a nice improvement from earlier. The dollar's up a tiny bit. Bitcoin's down a tiny bit. You have oil up 1.2, which I'll keep coming back to. To me, I don't think it's impossible that it's bottomed, even though the Iran risk has essentially gone away. So I think it's notable that oil's up a little bit. You have gold down about 0.8, silver down over 4. And I will say the silver chart is a little bit notable. If you drill all the way into a 4-hour, it has an aggressive uptrend line and then a more aggressive uptrend line, and that one just broke. And it's only a 4-hour, so it's it's not like it's a weekly that just broke or something. But to me, I have a pattern that I always watch for some bigger downside, and it's basically like a straight up, and then you start hooking at like a 45-degree angle. Whenever that breaks, especially if it's a really well-defined line, it usually isn't good. And that did just happen this morning on silver. Same for platinum, palladium, both down kind of 3, 4. Copper down about 3. I think bond yields are very notable today. Short end, you're up like 3 basis points, but the 10-year's up 5 basis points. I'm not sure exactly what this is coming from, but the president today made it sound like not going to be Hassett for the Fed, which would lead people to believe it's going to be Warsh. So maybe the bond market is kind of waving their finger at Warsh on that. I don't know. But as far as Mag 7 names go, nothing really moving enough to even talk about. Finally getting a bit of a pullback on some stuff abroad. You have EEM down like 0.5%. LATAM down about 0.3. China down 1.3. Something notable there. China's kind of stepped in and they're doing what they can to cool the speed of the ascent in the equity market. They raise some margin levels. They're cracking down on high frequency trading and stuff. So I think they want their market up, but I think they're going to manage it up for sure. Let's see. I think that's about it for things I wanted to hit on. Vol's down about 0.6. You're right about 18 on front month vol.
Okay, something I want to talk about. I want to pivot back to Twitter because I had some interaction, or silver. I had some interactions on Twitter, and I just want to kind of do this as a PSA. And I know you're going to agree, but feel free to add anything you want to it. I know there's a lot of folks out there that have made some really good money on silver. Yeah. Okay. Listen, investing is not a game of perfect. Okay. The goal with the silver that you own is not to hold it until it hits its maximum price. Okay. And the reason why, you have no idea what that level is. Okay.
And nobody does.
No. And you can find people that are going to tell you hold till 200, hold till 250, right? Let me remind you of the people that were saying don't sell any oil till it hits 300. Okay. Guys, people that are saying that are either charlatans, carnival barkers, or they don't know what they're talking about. Okay. Rick Rule, lives up in Anacortes. Actually, I got to get him. I had a back and forth with him. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He, I had a back and forth with him on back and forth. I DM'd him. He DM'd me back about coming on the show. I got to follow up with him and get him on here. But he knows Pat, my uncle, who's, for those of you guys don't know, is our mining analyst. And then he knows my grandfather's passed away, but my grandfather invested in a bunch of his deals early on in the game, and they know him well. But there is no better natural resource investor, mining investor than Rick Rule. And the way you can tell that is he's become a billionaire by investing in mining companies. There are not many people that can say that.
Which is real hard to do.
There are not many people that can say that. And he did, and there's no magic. Rick is a freaking dog. He works like an animal, and he is disciplined beyond belief. Okay, so he's the GOAT in natural resource investing. Put out a tweet last night and said, I have sold 25% of my miners. Okay, guys, if he's taking profit on these things, you should not be holding out till silver hits 200. Okay. Now, could it hit sure, it could hit 200.
Which is why he didn't sell 100%, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And here's the logic. You and I advocate this all the time. And investors just have to understand this. Not losing is just as, if not more important than winning. All right. And what Rick said was, he goes, I removed 20%. I removed 25% of the upside and eliminated 100% of the downside. Whenever you can do that, you do it. Period.
Right.
End of story. Full stop.
There's nothing worse than round tripping a big win.
Yep.
So and the only way to avoid that is to take some money off whenever it's going really, really well.
Yep.
When you're crying, you should be buying. When you're yelling, you should be selling.
Yep. And the funny thing I was thinking about is we're probably a little bit more than that, but with the trimmings and all that kind of stuff, we've probably pulled off about 35% of our miner exposure. It's probably 30 to 40, I would think.
It's a good bit. I mean,
yeah,
because our exposure to the sector has remained fairly constant around the same portion of the book, and it's gone up a lot. So by definition, we've trimmed a lot. Now, other stuff in the book's done well too, but that tells you that a lot's been taken off the table along the way.
And here's another reason why that's important. If we're talking about a non-cyclical business, I mean, every business is a little bit cyclical, but and we've talked about this endlessly, but every business is a little bit cyclical. It's going to follow economic cyclicals or cycles. Every commodity business is 100% cyclical, right? They're going to go up, they're going to go down. If you do not play it that way, you will just keep round tripping. Right. There is no gold or silver mining company that you buy and just hold forever.
Right. It's why the S&P obliterates commodities over long stretches of time.
Yes. Except gold.
Even there, if you go back far enough on a total return basis, the S&P has obliterated gold.
Yeah, probably. Now,
but that far enough these days is actually pretty far.
Yeah.
You're talking, you have to go back, more than 25, 30 years, I think.
Yeah. And just look, and people are like, I don't trade, I invest. Great. But there's that's not smart. That's like saying I only make touchdowns if we throw the football.
And you could have invested in tulips it probably would have been a smart thing to do to sell them whenever they became, worth more than crystals or whatever. Or
Yeah.
more than diamonds.
The other thing I will say is that I believe that yeah, I still believed in being a disciplined investor and holding for periods of times. But I do think the world has changed, meaning I think to be a good investor going forward, by definition, I think you're going to have to be more active. Things move too quick.
Yeah.
Right. You look at the technology we have, AI, social media, the internet, all these kinds of things. What they've done is they've just compressed time. Everything moves quicker, right? Things cycle quicker. And I think that does a couple things. I think it brings you more extraordinary opportunities, but they're not going to last as long. For instance, I guess if you'd asked me 18 months ago, I probably wouldn't have thought we would have sold as much of the miners as we have. I thought we would have trimmed, but not quite as much. Why did we? I didn't think we'd see $93 silver
right
by the beginning of 2026.
Right. And if anyone even called that, they're crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
they got it right, but they're crazy.
I thought we'd see $100 oil or under $100 silver in the cycle.
Right.
If it seemed to me like that, previous cycle it hit 50, we'd already crossed over. I was like, I feel like it's going to sniff out 100 at some point.
Right.
And maybe go past it, but didn't think it was going to happen that quick. And when it happens that quick, you got to take some skin off the game. But anyway, I was having a conversation on Twitter with a non-professional investor, and he'd crushed the silver trade. And I was sitting there and he goes, I'm not selling any until it hits 200. And I go, bad idea. This is not a game of perfect, right? We'll talk about football later. Do NFL teams go for it on fourth down every single time? Nope. Right. Do they always go for the touchdown rather than the field goal? Nope. Right. So it doesn't work that way.
Game of probabilities.
Yes. And here's the other thing too. And this is one of the things, if you're out there and you're a retail investor or even a professional investor starting out, just take this from me. And it was a really smart tweet a guy put out. I should have pinned it, or maybe I did retweet it. I'll go back and look through it. But he said, typically when people start off, and if they don't learn and become professional investors, that what they're trying to do is figure out what the future looks like. Right? They're trying to, I got to figure it like a code. Wrong. Nobody knows, including the future, meaning there's too many unpredictable things. What you should be doing is trying to stare as hard as you can into the darkness to recognize the hairpin turn coming up before anybody else sees it. Right? But the whole thing is you're not going to see it till it's in view. Right? That's not predictive. Right? It's analyzing or trying to be aware of the changes as quick as possible and adjusting on the fly. Right? It's not about trying to extrapolate out the future. It's a fool's game.
Well, I'll push back some to say that I do think it's good to try to look at the future, but only through two lenses. One, understanding that your odds of actually predicting the future right are really bad. And also, just the same as like a trade, understanding what's in the price. What does everyone else think about it? I feel like it's the same for the future. So like, if you're betting on something in the future and you agree with everyone, so like usually everyone agrees on something about the future, and usually it's basically an extrapolation. If you can find and support the fact that you think is actually going to look a good bit different than everyone else thinks, and then you watch for some little minor confirmations of that possibility or the probability rising of this non-consensus future, tons of money can be made.
Yep.
So like, it makes sense to try to look around the corner, but man, does that take a lot of humility. And to your point, that is what everyone's trying to do, is figure out the future and then come back here. And there's a lot of ego to that. So like, if you're waiting for $200, man, there's a lot of ego in that, because like, first of all, just betting on some super round number alone is problematic, but
you've said it better than I do. I mean exactly what you said. We all want to try to figure out the future. Druckenmiller talks about looking 18 months out.
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't say about looking out, right? Looking at a company, looking at a trend and carrying that forward, that is not a fool's errand, right? It is extrapolation, but we have to do that with everything to some degree, right? Making a plan is extrapolation in some level. But I'm talking about the people who are like, well, I think this is going to happen here. People talking about the collapse of the dollar, right? Yeah, it'll happen at some point. But first of all, there's going to be plenty of signs, right? It's just I've always responded to people. I go, yeah, guys, it's not the issue you think it is. It first of all, it's very easy to profit from it. It's very easy to see it coming. We're not going to wake up with the DXY 40% down in a single day. You know what I mean? And we want to try to look out there and envision what things look like 18 months, but that's a very different thing than trying to predict the future. Yeah. I know it sounds contradicting. You know what I'm saying, though.
I do. It's a difficult, nuanced thing to like peel apart and make it make sense for people, I think. But I think people listening will understand exactly what both of us are saying. And another thing on this whole notion of like, I'm not selling until 200 is, if you have a parabolic chart, it's going to have not just a pullback, but a nasty one. That's just the way this stuff works. And selling some along the way, to me, is like, it's like buying a ticket to buy the dip later. Like, yeah. Like, why wouldn't you want some dip tickets, to average your costs lower on the broad trade? Now, obviously there's a cost to that, For me, I know, like, we blasted past 50. I'm like, cool. I took a lot of my paper silver off the table. Like, that's good for me. Like, we're up whatever, like 100% in X months. Like, let's call that a win. So obviously I left a lot there, but for every time that you leave some on the table for a truly historic run, there's a million little times where 3 months later, you're like, oh, I knew I should have trimmed that. You know what I mean?
That was dumb.
Like this move in silver literally is the biggest, rip in silver since like the 60s or whatever. Like I was not alive the last time silver did this. That's all I need to know about what I should do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think the last time you had silver markets doing this was the Hunt brothers.
Right.
Wasn't it? In 80?
As far as like the speed of the ascent, like 2011 doesn't hold a candle to this. If you look at like how far away from like the 200 day or 200 week or whatever it is, like you've blown 2011 out of the water. And that was a monster bull market.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it goes back to, process over prediction,
100%.
Right? It's the reason we adhere to processes is they tell us what to do when we get off the beaten path. When silver is 200% above its 200-day moving average, that may not be correct, but I thought I saw that stat the other day. It's a lot. Okay, what that means is you are off the beaten path. What does that mean? It means that you have no prior experiences to compare it to, right? So what do? You follow your process, right? And where do we want to be? I want to be in a situation where I can win either way. And I will tell you this too. This may sound weird, but there are very few feelings in investing, at least to me, that are as good as catching a trade correctly, having the opportunity to take out my original investment, let it run, and then still believing that investment has a lot of value and watching it trace and cheering for it to continue, watching it retrace the gains and cheering for it to get cheaper because I know I've got powder on the side to re-up.
Right.
It's one of the best freaking feelings in the game.
And if you still have a decent position, you're not sad if it keeps going without you because it's not without you because you're still there.
No, like I said, Rick put it perfectly. Yes, I gave up 25% of the upside, but I eliminated 100% of the downside.
Regret minimization is super underrated in investing, and that's a perfect way to do that.
Yeah, and avoid the big losses, man. Just like,
I don't think there's any more anguish in markets that's worse than giving up, than round tripping something that was up a ton. It's just there's a brutality in that mentally.
You know what? It's something that would be fun to dig into psychologically because I feel like that exact thing is the genesis of virtually every catastrophic loss.
I mean, yeah.
Right, because what you're trying to do, you've realized the mistake. Now what was a big win is underwater. And what typically starts to happen is they start looking for a re-entrance position because they're looking for it to go back up.
Right back to where it came from. As if a parabolic blow off was all fundamentals.
Right. And then they just keep getting hammered and hammered and hammered. And then they start thinking the dreaded words, I'm in too deep anyway. I got to keep rolling the dice.
Right. Then you get all the revenge trading and
and
the doubling down and then the redoubling down. And that's how you literally make very nasty problems.
I have never done that. You and I have had conversations about it. And look, I think this is one of those games or professions that very few people last in without making all the typical mistakes. I revenge traded.
Yeah, to me, like I re-substacked a post the other day. It had a quote like, if you've never had a large drawdown, then you got one coming in your future, basically.
Yeah.
Because it's something you have to truly feel and experience to respect, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, it doesn't have to be a 90% drawdown, but if you haven't held something past when you should have let it go, you're going to. To learn.
Yep. And it always comes down to risk management. And that's the other thing too. If you believe in managing risk, which you should, accept right out of the gate that you will not bottom tick and top tick. You can't like that.
Right.
That's bad risk management.
Right.
You shouldn't even be trying to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Especially on stuff like this. And that's what I was saying to that guy on Twitter. I go, no. Look, don't argue with Rick Rule, man.
I think people view risk management as selling losers, and they don't respect the fact that selling winners is also risk management.
Yeah. Because and I'm a total believer in that whole get rid of your losers, let your winners run. But trimming your winners doesn't mean you're not letting them run. Right. It does. That's not what it means.
To me, like I'm giving it more life by trimming it.
Yeah, I can stay in this thing longer, right? And just play around with the math. If you don't do that, every trade will become your entire portfolio if it's successful, right? And that's never a good idea. What else do we have out? Do we have any data out today?
Let me pull it up. There was some today, but it's early, so I've barely.
I know it is early. I don't think we got any really interesting earnings out. Nobody ever drops earnings on Friday.
Let's see. We had the New York Fed services, which was bad, but better than last month. Industrial production came in hotter than expected. That's typically pretty noisy data, but that was the kind of the biggest one today was the NAHB, like home builder sentiment like survey, which I've been doing. I mean, the level's bad, but it had been picking up the last few months. We kind of went back down from 40 to 37. Or they were expected to be 40, you got 37 from 39 last month. So for some reason, home builder sentiment kind of fell back down despite this week. I mean, the home sales data was decent, it's picking up. So kind of interesting to see that. Maybe it just rates where they are has them feeling that way. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of a quiet week. I mean, in terms of markets, obviously a lot of crazy stuff going on.
One thing to mention today, maybe before we go football, was I mentioned, I think yesterday right at the end, like, hey, Mark Carney, or maybe it was the day before, Mark Carney in China, going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. Obviously, we don't really allow Chinese cars in America. The Mexican government just put on pretty big tariffs on Chinese autos. Canada had put very big tariffs on Chinese.
Why would Mexico put tariffs on Chinese autos?
It's up to us.
Got it.
That's what I was thinking. I think it's at the end of the day.
That was the only idea I had in my mind.
And Canada had basically done the same thing. But part of the deal they reached, China hit them back with stopping all the canola oil imports. So they're going to start doing canola oil imports, and Canada's bringing dramatically down with I think this is a smart way to do it. They basically got rid of the tariff, but they're like, hey, you can only bring in 50,000 cars or whatever. Which is what we did with a couple countries, like the UK. We're like, cool, we'll give you a low car tariff, but we're only selling X amount. So that was what Canada did with China. But notably, the Canadians refer to it as a new strategic partnership, which is those are big words to throw around whenever you're like getting more friendly with another country. So definitely a notable visit to China for Canada, and the two are at least working together a little closer than they were before.
Oh yeah, and China is clearly lobbying them to pull further away from us. The language.
I mean, so are we.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Which
I think it's
is
great for Canada. That would be my biggest point.
Right now it is.
Well, Canada was not diversified. They're just, an impingement. What's the word I'm looking for?
An impingement?
No.
What?
Appendage? Is that the right?
An appendage, yeah.
Yeah, to us, essentially. They're just, and now they're like, well, let's diversify. Like, let's build these export ports on both coasts so we can send stuff to Europe, we can send stuff to Asia. But let's double down on our natural resources. Like, and now, having a better trade relationship with the biggest, best manufacturer on the planet is probably a good idea. So, and obviously they've beefed up their fiscal spending. Like, I think things are a lot better for Canada 10 years from now than they would have been if all this stuff didn't happen.
Yeah, that's certainly certainly possible. I think you've got, and you could end up being right. I think you've got a bit more faith in the Canadian government than I do. I don't.
I think most governments are good at doing stuff when they have to, and I think that's what we basically push them into having to do the right stuff. So they had no choice.
Yeah, they just make a lot of strange. The way the Canadians run their economy is confounding to me.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, all the little states that are very, very different and decentralized, and they basically have tariffs against each other and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bizarre.
They could be such an economic powerhouse if they wanted to.
But that's the beauty of this of this environment is commodities up. Like just that is great for them.
I know, but just their taxation policy makes no sense. When you look at the natural resources they have, and I'm not saying they could make this transition that quick, but they could legitimately afford to probably keep the vast majority of their public services and drastically lower tax rates. And they could it's like they're not playing 3D chess. There's a lot of people in America. Look at Washington State, right? Microsoft was talking about the potential of moving people to Vancouver. Well, if Carney really wanted to or if Canada was really serious about really developing, make it attractive, offer lower tax rates, make it attract. You and I have talked about this. It is incredible to me how, depending on which side of the political aisle you're on, that economic progress means a very strict thing, and we will never look at that side of it, right? We can't give tax cuts. Like, isn't the whole point trying to maximize your tax revenue? Don't you want it to get bigger, right? It's just weird to me that, anyway, they're Canadian. They do their own thing.
Well, to be fair, the other side of the political spectrum over-indexed to the Laffer curve.
Oh, 100%.
Over and over in the last 50 years or whatever.
Yeah, and that's welcome to like my own personal hell about tax arguments, because I just sit there and I go, guys, you remember when we were going through math? I think it was algebra or geometry where it's a parabola, right? Bell-shaped curve, right? And what is that on one side of it is zero, on the other side of it is zero. Okay, that's taxes. 100% tax rate would raise 0% zero taxes, right? A 0% tax rate would raise zero taxes. What does that tell you right out of the gate? We're looking at a maximization problem mathematically, and it's not hard to figure it out, right? Do the math. It's somewhere in there. It ain't at 50.
There's a lot of nonlinear stuff too, where like you may give a break to a thing that does literally cost you money, but it's like the same in business. It's a loss leader that brings other revenue. So if you build a business ecosystem by giving some early breaks, next thing you know, like, man, look at what we're bringing tax revenue wise from all the sales there and the labor there and everything. Like there can be these weird like losses that turn into wins and vice versa and everything. So but it does feel like no one's very good at that. I shouldn't say no one, but
it's just bizarre, right? Like, just you sit there and you go, when your constant answer to every tax question is more, and your constant answer to every you guys, you have to know that both of you are wrong,
right?
Like let's figure it out, and let's look at tax policy the way that we should. Hey, where is the number where we can maximize revenue without pinching economic growth at all? That and truthfully, that number is moving around, right?
Always, yeah.
What we put that number at 5 years or right now, it's going to be different in 5 years, and we'll adjust.
Right, and the rates are to tip of the iceberg because of all the deductions and loopholes and everything. You know, that's the problem I think in the U.S. is all that matters is if you think about it, it's the effective rate, not the headline rate. The headline rates, who cares?
Well, and the other issue in the U.S. is you effectively have you have like a staggered 2 tax policy system, meaning if you have the ability, and I don't know where that number
there's
starts.
There's some break even though where you flip to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like it's, you know, for instance, I think one of the biggest problems in this country is, well, not one of the biggest problems as it relates to tax policy and people really understanding it is, you know, for instance, they're trying to pass that law in Washington right now, an income tax on people that make over $1 million a year, right? And they're like, yeah, rich people should pay more. And you go, guys, if we're talking about the people in this state that make between $1 to, let's call it $10 million a year, they're paying taxes through the freaking nose. And the problem is most people, and this kind of surprised me, but when you get out there and talk, most people don't think that rich people should pay more than 35 to 40%. They don't think rich people are paying anything. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. They are working the tax law, but they're way further up the ladder than when you start targeting businesses and individuals that make $1 million a year. You're going after small and family owned businesses.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
That's the part they have to get right.
Right.
Because I think most people are totally fine with millionaire, billionaire type taxes if they're done right. It's just no one ever seems to do it right. And to your point, like it's you know, if you're a movie star getting $2 million checks, W-2 checks, that's way different than if you run a flooring company that does 8 million in revenue.
Yeah, because it'll have years where it doesn't.
Right.
And you got to be able to have a surplus to make it through. And that's what I try to tell people. If you look at my headline, you know, net income of Bulwark Capital, you'd be way more impressed with my income than you should. Because why? I got to have capital reserves on the side. Things happen that you're not planning on. A regulator comes after you when you've done nothing wrong and hits you for an extra 150 to 200 grand that you didn't build into your plan. You always have. So you sit there and go, you made that much. Yeah, but to your credit, yes. And there's a lot of liability attached to that.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm the employee of Microsoft making $5 million a year, that's a completely different ballgame. And that's why I think people they're like, rich people don't pay enough. Yes. Okay. But make sure we're identifying what rich people are, right? Because again, if we're talking about the average guy, and you can look up the numbers, I'm not making this up. Go look at the average person or LLC that is netting $1 million to $5 million a year. I bet you in this state, you're probably looking at about 80 to 85% of those are small or family-owned businesses. They just are. And that isn't who you want to be hitting, because here's what happens. When you make tax policy on them too onerous, you know what they end up doing? Selling to a multinational, right?
Or some stupid private equity firm or something.
Yeah, because you're sitting there going, why do I keep doing this? Why don't I sell the whole bloody thing, take a one-time cap gains hit of 20% rather than giving away 45 to 50% of my profit every single year to a government? And meanwhile, I'm competing against a multinational that's a C Corp, so they've got an effective tax rate of 20. It just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the idea that a multinational C Corp is at 20 and my LLC is paying 37.5. Like, again, you're targeting the wrong things. And that's what people like. I'm all about, you know, you and I have talked about the carried interest loophole. I'm all about shutting that stuff down, but aim your gun at the right target, man. You know, and we want to be a country. We want to be a country where entrepreneurs and small family businesses can make $1 million or $2 million. That's the American dream. What isn't the American?
That's also how we end up getting products and services at a competitive price and good quality and all that stuff too.
100%.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate and actual performance may differ.
Football. Let's start with you. We got What do we? No, we have 4 games this weekend, right? So, first one, the one that I'm one of the most interested in is St. Louis and Chicago.
All right, so I'll go big here. I'll say Chicago. Chicago has a better chance than anyone thinks here.
I would agree.
And if you look at the history, Stafford not so good in cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a Texas boy. Then he went to Georgia, so it's going to be nasty weather. So it's going to be cold.
What temp?
Like 20s or something with wind, and it's going to be cold. So I think that might be getting a little sneakily underrated as an impact on the game.
Well, and then you start to think about it too. I think the weather makes the differential because Caleb Williams is exceptionally talented. But if we're talking playoff football, there's no question I'm trusting Stafford. I think Stafford's the best, if not one of 2.
If it just came down to that, it's pretty much no brainer.
I think Stafford is playing some of the best quarterback that anybody has played in the last 20 years. I mean, he's a baller. But the colder and nastier the weather gets, the more that
equalizes a little bit.
Well, and then you look at the quarterback that's more mobile, right? Like Caleb Williams will pick up first downs with his legs this weekend.
And I think they have the better running back. So,
And to me, that game is all about the trenches. It usually always is. But who's going to win that up front? The nastier the weather, the more about who's going to be able to bang up front.
For sure.
And that's a tight one. I'm gonna play to the other side. My head is telling me Chicago for all the reasons you're saying, especially the weather and stuff. McVay and Stafford are so crafty.
I think it's like a 7.5 point spread or something though. Like that. That's where I'm like, no.
The Rams are favored by 7.5.
Yeah, I think you can get like 3-1 payout on going Bears. To me, like that's worth the risk on 3-1.
Well, if we're talking about the bet, then I'm not
now,
giving.
As far as who's going to win, it should be the Rams, obviously. But then again, they barely beat the Panthers, so I don't know.
That's such a crapshoot though when the weather's like that. I mean,
I'll go for it. I'll call for the upset.
I mean, the ball flies differently. I wish your helmet fits differently, and well, you played in Texas, so maybe you don't know. Yeah, did it ever get cold? Did it get cold enough?
So in the playoffs, every once in a while, we'd have some cold fronts where it'd be nasty.
Yeah, you go to put your helmet on, it feels like an ice block.
And it was when I learned that the best hack in the world for a receiver, and that is to put like surgical like rubber gloves on or cleaning gloves, and then your receiver's gloves.
Keep your hands dry
because they like trap heat, like trap it. Mm-hmm. So like if you just put receiver's gloves on, your hands are still freezing.
Yeah.
If you put those surgical gloves on and then your receiver's gloves, you're fine. You don't even feel it.
Yeah. You know what my secret was? Nothing. Just I was a linebacker. You can't have sleeves, right? It's receivers wear sleeves. Quarterbacks wear sleeves.
I'll wear a jacket if they would let me.
No, yeah. I was out there trying to be a tough guy.
Not me.
Okay.
I love sleeves. They help you catch the ball.
That's true.
If you arm catch one, it kind of grabs, it gives you a little extra.
Oh yeah.
I've never understood why receiver didn't wear sleeves more. Although now they let cornerbacks grab so much, probably a bad idea.
Yeah, receivers. Yeah, but if you're like a linebacker or a defensive player,
that's just something for someone to grab. You don't want that.
No, and you also look like a wimp.
That's like I've always loved the linemen that have the just crazy tight jersey so they can't get grabbed.
Oh yeah. And every roll of their fat
makes sense.
Showing.
I mean, you don't want somebody grabbing that.
100%. Okay, Buffalo and who are they playing?
Are they Texans? I can't remember.
No, Texans are playing New England.
Denver.
Buffalo's playing Denver.
I'm gonna go Denver.
I'm taking Buffalo. Let me.
We're on opposite sides of everything so far.
Yeah. Let me run you through why. Denver clearly has a better defense. I do not have much faith at all in Denver's offense. I think it's going to be a low scoring affair. And I think when you're talking about football games, especially with a guy like Josh Allen, I think the closer that game stays down the stretch, the more advantage Buffalo has. And I just usually in playoff games, if you pick the better quarterback, you're going to win. They're an outdoor football team. I don't know what the weather is going to be looking like in Denver, but probably not going to be warm. I wouldn't anticipate that affecting them a whole lot. It'll be interesting to see how Allen does against that defense. But I kind of see this as, like I said, Denver's the better team, but in this particular matchup, I kind of think they're pretty evenly stacked. You know what I mean? And when I'm looking at that, and then I'm looking at Allen, I kind of think he's going to push it over the edge. That's kind of my thought.
So for me, I just don't think the Bills are good. Straight up, I don't think they're good, especially their offense. Their pass offense was ineffective most of the year.
Yeah,
now they can run. I think that's what it comes down to is can Denver stop their run? Because if Denver stops their run, then I don't know if they can score more than 13. But if they can't stop the run, well, the whole thing's equalized, and who knows? But I think the Denver defense is better than the average American out there that watches a little bit of football realizes. I think legit. Allen will be under a lot of pressure, and I think their problem is their receivers just aren't good enough. Obviously, it's not their pass offense wasn't bad because Josh Allen isn't good. That's for sure.
No. They just only really have one, Shakir.
Yeah, I just don't think they're good enough outside. And in the playoffs, man, if you can't do that, it's just tough. And I'm kind of with you on the offense side. Like I don't really have much respect for the Broncos offense. They do just enough usually with a great defense. If I look at all 4 units, only one of them's great, and it's that Bronco defense. That's maybe that's my tiebreaker.
And playing at home, and I think that's
never hurts. Although in the playoffs so far it hurts maybe.
That's if you've got a team that clearly has a better defense and they're playing at home, that's obviously what you typically want to bet. I just have a feeling that the Bills, I think, have the least impressive team that I've seen in the last 5 years from them. It just feels like that's one I would not be surprised if Allen figures out a way to squeeze.
He did last week. I mean, they almost lost last week, but he put them on their back. So the pass offense came alive when it had to, and they got it done. So
and I could be 100% wrong, and I've been wrong about teams like this before, where it just took me too long to come around on them. I just don't believe in Denver. I don't
either. I think
they're a good team.
I think after this they're done. But
yeah, okay, all right. So now flipping to the other one, and I think one of the most interesting ones is New England and Texans. What do you have there?
I think you already know where this is going, but I have the Texans. I just think their defense is that good.
I agree, and
I think New England is a really good team, and I think Vrabel deserves Coach of the Year. I think he's a great coach, but I think they're just too young. They're too new and too young versus a Texans team that's kind of been there a couple times, and I mean, they were in playoffs the last 2 years. It's not new to them, you know. So I think that experience factor is gonna hurt New England, and then Drake May's had a great year, but he hasn't had pass rushers in his lap the way he's going to in this one. So I think it's going to be a very close game, but I think Texans will pull it out.
Yeah, I think that I don't think I'm with you. I don't think May has played a defense like this.
The guy's legit, though, I will say.
Yeah, that defense is really impressive. That is really impressive. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson coming off the edges. They are grown men. Danielle Hunter is bigger than I thought he was.
I told you his veins look like fire hoses on his arms.
No kidding, dude.
He is big. I didn't realize he's that big either. He looks skinny. So when you told me his weight, I was like,
6'5", 270 or 6'6".
He looks skinny on TV. I'm sure if you saw you're next to him, like, oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. I mean, he's effectively Julius Peppers. I mean,
and he looks like Curse to me. So yeah,
yeah.
And Curse was skinny.
That dude's unbelievable. Now, the one thing I will say about the Texans, that their best receiver, Nico Collins, he got a concussion this last week. Is he playing?
I have not seen. The last I saw was not trending great. I mean, that concussion looked bad.
Yeah, it did.
But I think their rookie is basically Nico Collins 2.0. The kid they drafted from Iowa State.
Okay.
I think that kid could have a breakout game.
Okay. Yeah, here's the other reason why. Now,
but that's gonna be a low scoring game.
Yeah, I haven't watched a lot of the Texans, so I'm not. But Pittsburgh, at least in the last half of the season, certainly at the end of the season, was doing a really good job shutting down the run. At one point in that game against Pittsburgh, I think the Texans ran it 8 consecutive times, just right down their throat. If you go into playoff football and you are running the football effectively and playing good defense, you're going to win 95% of the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really is that simple. If they can run the football against New England with that defense, I just don't think New England could beat them.
Yeah. I think it's going to be like a 13-10 game. I think I
wouldn't be surprised.
Slugfest.
I wouldn't be surprised to see 10-7.
a lot of these it's gonna come down to like turnovers and special teams and stuff.
Yeah, turnovers are always huge.
Yep.
Always looms huge. Okay, now for the one that I'm obviously the most interested in, Seahawks, Niners. What do you got there?
I think Seahawks are going to be fine. Do we know if we're going to see Sam?
He said yesterday, kind of chuckling, that he said that he thinks the chances he doesn't play are close to 0.
Okay,
that's what he said. So
I think it'll be a little closer than people think, maybe, but I don't think the Seahawks are really gonna have a problem.
Yeah. So here's the way I look at it.
So you're Texans as well?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
Texans as well. Yeah. The way I look at the Seattle game is that I am never going to count. I think Brock Purdy is a much better quarterback than people think. I think Shanahan is
interesting.
What?
Interesting.
He's interesting?
No, you saying that's interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because I was not an easy.
This was a holy war in the office last year.
Yeah, I thought he was a systems guy, and he kept doing it. He's just kept doing it, and his moxie, his ability to hang in there and take hits. He's won me over. I've got a lot of respect for the guy. Now I hate the Niners, but they're tough. They're tough. They're disciplined. They're well coached. I just think it's a simple issue of when you look, it's not very rare, or excuse me, it's very rare in a game, divisional rivalry game, division title on the line, right? Number 1 seed on the line. So everybody's got everything to play for. It's very rare to see NFL games where a team gets as physically dominated as San Francisco did last. They had no answers. And here's what people
even have more injuries now.
So. Yep. And people are looking and going, oh, new game plan. There is no game plan for getting your tail beat up front. There is none.
It's just.
It is what it is.
Right.
Right. The only way they win this game is if we turn the ball over a lot and have a bad day. It's just the only way, especially with Kittle out now. There's just no way. Go back and look at the first game of the season. We came in, it was Darnold's first game. We came in with a ridiculously conservative game plan, made a bunch of mistakes. We should have won that game. We outplayed them. Go back and look at it. They had all their guys. That's just one game. Then we go down there and beat the living. As a matter of fact, I have never seen a game that was decided by 10 points that was that lopsided. That was an ass whooping. Right. And I just don't. Will they have answers that they didn't have last? I'm sure, man. I'm not going to put anything past Shanahan. I just don't. I think that this is all predicated on the Hawks. If they come out and play well, I think they win by more than 10. I don't think it's going to be a 30-point. I'm not saying that just because San Francisco is tough and they are determined. They're not rolling over. They're not. Right. They're going to fight you to the end. But I think they're a really good. I think they're a really good gunslinger, and they're just out of bullets.
I think they're probably just too hurt. Yeah. It's so popular now in football to say, "Oh, next man up." Who, everybody's got injuries. Like, shut up. Like, next man was on the bench for a reason. Like, if you get enough next men up, you have a problem.
Yeah, if you've got 3 All-Pros missing from your roster, that's tough to overcome.
Yeah,
that's really tough to overcome.
Injuries are a very underrated factor in football.
Well, he
coaches can't use that as an excuse, so everyone just ignores it. But injuries are wildly important.
Yeah, and everybody's like, yeah, we got Trent Williams back. Look, the guy's a freaking stud. There's no question.
He'll take care of his side, but his one.
But there's another thing to think about. I still think they're worse off. I think if you can have Kittle or Williams, I think Kittle is more important to their offense.
I'll disagree with that, but I get where you're coming from.
Well, let me reroute what I'm saying here. Considering you have no Brandon Ayuk, considering you have no Deebo Samuels is gone, okay, with that in mind, and God forbid if Pearsall doesn't play, I think Kittle's a bigger deal than Williams. Now, if you've got those guys, I would be with you, right? Because I think Williams is the best left tackle in all football. But again, here's the other thing. Will he improve some things? Yes. Where they got beat wasn't at the tackle. It's up the middle.
But this lets you ignore the left, chip the right, and let the running back maybe get ready to help out in the middle. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, it does. Give
you really don't want your running back chipping or helping in the middle either, because you want him out on the route. But.
Well, and this gets to my other point. Kittle's one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL.
100%.
Yeah. And so I feel like I feel like San Francisco's in a very similar place the last time they played us. They got Williams back, but they lose Kittle. Like I said, I think the Seahawks have to turn the ball over. I'll tell you this: if for the Niners to win, let me flip it around. Look at it for the Niners to win. In order for the Niners to win, they have to stop. They got to stop our running game. They cannot let us go over 100 yards. I don't think they can win that.
Yeah.
They've got to stop our running game, and they got to turn Darnold over. If they don't do, and even if they do those two things because of how depleted they are,
their offense still has to go do some stuff.
Right. And, look, again, I'm not going to count Shanahan out.
It has to be those young receivers stepping up and them doing a better job of the pass rush than you would expect. And obviously being able to run. What we did
to them down in San Francisco, I don't think people are paying enough attention to it. In all of the years that Shanahan has been a head coach, there is only one other time he was held to 3 points in a game. That was at Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Okay, you bring that offense up here and they can't hear. So for people that haven't been out, that stadium is, you can't imagine how loud you can't hear yourself think. And that's not going to win or lose a game. But I'll tell you what, it's especially tough in the running game.
Oh, I mean, on 3rd and 9, it's a problem.
Well, it's a problem on 1st and 10, and I'll tell you why. The offense knowing the snap count on running plays is even more advantageous than it is on passing plays. Okay? So if you've got a tough time up front with a team, and now you've got to play silent snap counts eliminate the cadence advantage for the offense. Everybody's going on the snap of the ball. If you can't run the ball in your own stadium against us, I don't know how you're going to do it up here. I think that's the only way. I think Christian McCaffrey has to go over 100 yards of total offense, and they've got to keep us under 100 yards rushing, and they got to turn us over. That's the only way I see them winning.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to screen it up a lot, stuff like that.
But our speed, the team's speed of Seattle's just, it really nullifies that screen game. And I'll tell you what, another thing that hurts them big time on the screen game is Kittle not being out.
Yeah.
Because they
do have the best receiving running back in the league, so it can.
Yeah. No, like I said, man, I
screen the tight end though.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't like them, but there are very few teams. What those guys have done, considering the injuries they've dealt with this year, they're a really good football team.
He should finish top 5 in coach of the year, honestly.
Yeah, I think you make the argument he's number 1.
I got to give it to Vrabel or Ben Johnson. But.
Yeah, that's true. Because they're younger teams and they brought him up and developed him and all that kind of stuff. But they're a really tough team. Not counting them out. But look, the other thing too, and keeping it, it's so funny to hear people talking about football and the things that they think they know. It's not like I'm God's expert or anything, but when you get into playoff football, it's fairly predictable. Okay, who's better up front? Whoever wins the game up front is probably going to win the game 70 to 80% of the time. And then the next most important stat to me would be who runs the football better. And then the next important stat is turnovers.
The funny thing is, like, the two best players of our generation have been Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes. And they've both lost Super Bowls. And if you go look at them, all of them were because the other team was able to put pressure on them and without bringing a lot of blitzes.
Yep.
It was literally it. Like, Mahomes was bad because what are you going to do? You got pressure. And it was the same for Brady. Like, with the Giants, I mean, they got after him. So it really is kind of that simple sometimes.
Well, that's another huge advantage that Seattle has in this game. We have pressured opposing quarterbacks more than any other team in the NFL, and we blitz least than any other team in the NFL.
And that was why they scored 3 in that game. Like, he just never had a clean pocket.
Yeah, and you bring it up perfectly. Remember how mortal that Giants front made Brady look in the Super Bowl?
Brady wasn't different. It just, if you don't have time to throw, then you're not going to win.
Now, you flip around and look at San Francisco with the injuries they have. They don't have a single guy on their roster that has more than 4 sacks this year.
Jeez.
Yeah, they have no edge weapons whatsoever. And I just think that's going to be tough, right? Like the other side of it is that's going to be tough. And look how we did down there in Santa Clara. Flip around. That crowd is quiet as a church mouse when the Seahawks are on offense, right? So I hate the Niners, but I have a ton of respect for them. I just think that they just have too big a hill to climb, in my opinion.
I'll put it this way. It would be a really impressive win if they have somehow pulled it off.
Well, like Daniel Jeremiah, I heard an interview that he was doing, and he goes, if they can win this game, he goes, that play sheet of Shanahan's needs to go to Canton immediately, you know? And it's just the other thing about defensive teams, and this is why defense wins championships, and just take it from a guy that played a lot of football, played in college, defense is so much easier to be consistent at. You know what I mean? It just is. And you've seen those days where you have great offenses, and it's not that nobody brought their A game, but for whatever reason, everything's just a little half second off. Yep. You know, just we're missing, we're not hitting. It's so much easier to be consistent on defense. And, you know, that's why usually when you look at playoff football, who's got the best defense, who runs the ball the best, they're going to win most of the time.
Yep.
Probably 80%, I would say.
Yeah. Other than just as long as you don't have the stupid stuff with special teams and turnovers and stuff.
Yep. Well, and that's another tough
if your
part.
Field goal kicker misses a bunch of kicks or whatever, like it can be that simple sometimes. But
yeah. Well, and that's where it goes to me with Seattle, where I just don't think. I think if both teams play well, I think Seattle wins going away.
I think I would apply that to Seattle for the rest of the season.
I would agree.
Yeah, if they play their game, then no one's beating them.
They're the most complete team.
To me, the only team that competes, and I think it's going to be the Super Bowl, is them and the Texans, because they both have elite defenses and good enough offenses.
Yeah, I heard somebody the other day going, Seahawks, the one team I don't think they could deal with is the Texans. And I'm like, well, they played them earlier this year and beat them 27-10.
Yeah, but the Texans have won 10 in a row, though. They picked it up.
And they got better throughout the year.
Yeah.
My point is that we put up one of the highest point totals on them for the year at their house.
Yeah.
So
I think it might be a 3-0 game.
Yeah. But to your point, at least to my eye, that defense looks very different than it did when we played them.
100%.
Yeah, they've gelled. They've come together.
They've got young guys that picked it up. They got, hurt people back the whole 9 yards, although they got a hurt guy back last week, got hurt again. But
I do think this, though. I do think that we could run the football on them.
I don't know.
They're not bad in the middle, but it's not the strong part of their defense. I think the weakest part of their defense are their tackles.
Yeah, I agree, because one of them was a former Brown that washed out. So
yeah, and they're not bad. I'm not saying they're garbage.
Yeah.
They're a really good defense all the way around. Where Seattle is so even up front. I mean, you've got guys that could potentially be Pro Bowl or All Pro at every position up front. They got studs at the edges, and they got guys that aren't bad, but guys that don't scare me in the middle. And I think when you look at our center and our guard, one great one that's really good sometimes and can be really bad. I think we have an advantage there in the middle of them, but we got to get there first, right? Like there's a lot of football between now and then. And I'll be at the game, sir. I'm taking the kids. Yeah, this will actually be the first playoff game I've ever been to.
I've only been to one playoff baseball game. I've never been to a playoff football game. So
yeah, I've been to one playoff baseball game as well. So that'll be a fun.
Almost like a 17-inning walk-off. So it was a long day.
You were there for it?
Yeah.
Wait, which one was that?
It was whatever, like 4. I guess it has to be 4 years ago in Cleveland, and we had a rookie hit a walk-off home run in the millionth inning. And they stopped serving beer, in the 7th. So they played a whole game after they stopped serving beer, and it's like, this is crazy. Can you open the beer back up?
How long were you there? Was that like a 6-hour game?
Yeah, it was a long time. And it was cold.
Wow. What time was it when it finished?
So it was like the earliest game.
Oh, okay.
I want to say first pitch was like 10, 11 or something. But the sun was about to go down by the time it was over. It was long. Yeah,
it's a long day. You got anything else?
No, I think we're good.
All right, you guys. Well, hey, have a great weekend watching football. Or maybe people are like, this is supposed to be an investing podcast.
We gave them a warning this time.
Yeah, we did.
They're long gone.
Yeah, we gave them a warning. Anyway, all right, guys, have a wonderful weekend. As always, you can follow me and Chase on social media at KYR Radio for me and at Pinecone Macro for Chase. For the video feed, go to YouTube, search Know Your Risk Podcast. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Tuesday. Market's closed on Monday, right?
Yep.
MLK Day? Yep. So we'll see you Tuesday. Have a wonderful weekend. You're listening to Know Your Risk Podcast. Download and subscribe at knowyourriskpodcast.com.
Investment advice cannot be given without a client service agreement. Zach Abraham is an investment advisor representative of Trek Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Bulwark Capital Management is a marketing name only and does not carry a separate registration.